I'm Joe Cholton.
And I'm Courtney Hart.
Welcome to a special 60th anniversary programme about the Munich disaster, brought to you by journalism students at Manchester Metropolitan University.
All the films you're about to see have been made by students and lecturers from the journalism department, marking 60 years since the tragic plane crash, which killed 23 players, coaches and journalists. This changed not only Manchester's footballing history, but journalism as well.
We've partnered with Northwest Film Archive to edit rare colour footage of the Busby Babes in action from 1957, the season before the Munich air disaster.
This is the story of that amazing film which reminds us how talented those United youngsters were and why their tragic deaths shook the world.
United captain Roger Byrne leads out the Busby Babes at Turf Moor on Good Friday 1957. It's a strong side. Here's centre-forward Tommy Taylor, record scorer Billy Whelan, Bobby Charlton, Duncan Edwards and David Pegg. At a time when newsreel and television coverage of football was recorded in black and white, this footage was shot on 16mm colour stock by a prolific amateur filmmaker from Burnley called Sam Hanna. The Babes were well on their way to a second league title in a row, and this game was the start of 6 fixtures in 10 days for Matt Busby's team, including a European Cup semi-final second leg against Di Stefano's Real Madrid. Hanna had been invited to work with Burnley to record the Clarets in action so that they could analyse their performance on film. They were unbeaten at home so far. A crowd of 36,000 turned out for this Easter game against the champions, who took an early lead through Whelan. From a corner, Burnley's McElroy stabbed home to equalise. Charging in, said reporter Don Davis, who would die at Munich, like a rogue elephant bursting through a palisade. 60mm colour film was particularly precious and expensive to use, so Hanna records in short bursts, and here just catches the end of Billy Whelan's second. Whelan got 26 in this season. Among the Babes, number 11 David Pegg impressed Real Madrid so much they signed an emergency left back before the second leg. Then from a corner, a moment of drama, as keeper Ray Wood is injured in a challenge with a Burnley forward. The game pauses as he receives treatment, and the ref has given a penalty. But fullback Winton hits the post. It's Duncan Edwards, number 6, with the big jump of relief. United pressed for a third to make sure, and it arrived from the boot of number 8 Billy Whelan. Hanna again just catching the moment he struck his hat-trick. So many of this team were tipped for greatness. Tommy Taylor, Duncan Edwards, Roger Byrne, England legends of the future. Jackie Blanchflower, Johnny Berry, Billy Whelan, David Pegg. We see them here in colour, a rare treat in a world recorded in black and white. The day after this, they faced Sunderland at home. Easter Monday, Burnley at home. On the Thursday, Real Madrid. They would go out of the European Cup and lose the FA Cup final a few months later, but this was a team of unbelievable potential. Thanks to Sam Hanna, we see them here at Turf Moor for what they are, footballers without frills.
Amazing to see that footage from the Northwest Film Archive.
Now, regardless of their allegiance, all football fans know that the Munich disaster means how that terrible crash ripped the heart out of Manchester United.
Our next item illustrates how the club and fans turned tragedy into eventual triumph, as 2 United fans, Mike Thomas and fiancée Elaine Giles, started a website to ensure the legacy of the Babes lives on.
Mike, tell us how you started Munich58.co.uk.
17, 18 years ago, myself and my fiancée, and I'll credit her with the idea, decided to set up an online memorial in the form of a website, really just to help continue the memory of the people that died in the air crash, to keep the memory alive, and also as an education to those what I call new breed of football fans, to help them learn about what happened on that runway in 1958.
Tell us about the photographs you received from Germany.
This was just out of the blue, that I got an email back in 2005 and this gentleman said, I've got some photos that you might want to put onto your site. He was sent them by somebody who wanted to use them or give them to him for use in a BBC documentary. But those photographs are amazing. They're the first colour photos that I've seen. They obviously happened after the crash. They were the day after, and they just show the aftermath in amazing colour. So you can see a broken plane in the background, you can see the decimation on the runway, bits of metal all over the place.
With the 60th anniversary this year, do you think it's time for a younger generation to take over these commemorations?
As a United fan and as a Mancunian, we are very, very close to the tragedy. We intend to keep going. I'd like to hope that the younger generation will be there and they will have benefited from things like the website and the knowledge that we are giving. But no, certainly we intend to keep that memory alive through the website and through what we do every February here.
Well done, Mike and Eileen. Those colour photographs are incredible.
Now we go to the Quadrant pub in Stretford, where locals are fiercely protective of their own unique tribute to the Busby Babes.
Sports journalism lecturer Vince Hunt went out to find more.
Across the Chester Road, not far from United's ground, is the Quadrant pub, where Busby's Babes would gather for a drink after training. It's here that you get a sense of the community that surrounded the club in those days. Customers at the Quadrant saw the players regularly and so clubbed together to create a permanent memorial to them.
All the lads have paid for that, and we appreciate it, and every year it's dressed up with flowers.
Whose idea was it to make a sign like that?
It was everybody's, and people come from all over the world to see it.
You know, they're all queuing up to take photographs of the sort of, because obviously it's a one-off, it's one of its kind, as far as we know anyway. You know, and it's and the fact that it is by the people for the people, if you like, I think it makes it just a little bit more special. You know what I mean? It's not some corporate or some sort of anything like that. It's just a simple memorial from the customers here. Because in the old days, he remembers them. A lot of the players used to pop in and have a drink in here, so it's...
Alex Stepney comes in every year with people, taking photographs and introducing everybody, and this is, the old pub where half the players used to drink in in our day.
When you say your day, you saw the Babes play, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. All of them. Duncan, Edwards, Eddie Coleman, Swivelets. Brilliant.
The question's been asked millions of times. Would you compare? How can you compare? You can't. It's impossible. The pitches were different. The balls were different. The equipment was different. You know what I mean? It's I'm reminiscing as you do. I said, do you remember the days in the Derby County pitches when they were they really were horrendous? I mean, they're like snooker bases now. Like these. So the comparison, well, there is none. There's no way you could.
The loss of the Busby Babes is still painful in these parts, even now, regardless of club loyalties.
Very sad. It was a sad time, wasn't it? Sad time for us all.
It still brings a tear to your eyes. Yeah. I mean, my father was a staunch Blue and real sort of Reading City fan, but he broke down. He was 6'4", and he broke down in tears. And I remember, it's funny how you remember things, isn't it? I remember him 6'4", 17 stone, hell of a big fella, and crying. What's the matter with him? Of course, then it came out like the Munich air disaster, and you never forget it. You never forget it. So.
And so that sign there, that tribute there, over on the wall, that's staying up.
For us, it is stopping up. Yeah. whoever takes over the pub, that's ours, nobody else's.
We have the same ritual every time somebody takes over, another sort of takes over, we have to say, excuse me, you do know that's not part of fixtures and fittings, it belongs to the customers, not you. So to make sure that Holtz's, when he said, well, we didn't assume it was theirs, I took it home with me. And only when the landlady asked, when they'd done the refurb, could they have it back, and with the promise it would go in exactly the same place, in exactly the same way, that we said, well, all right, we'll relent, otherwise it'd still be in my shed.
While Les and Eddie have a drink with friends, both red and blue, this memorial will be a fixture in the Quadrant for many years to come.
Well, from one great tribute to the Babes to another, just around the corner from the Quadrant, Tom Curry was a physiotherapist and coach who began working for Manchester United in 1934. 60 years after his death, his contribution has been recognised with a blue plaque, thanks to the efforts of United fan Charlie Bell, who lives in Tom's old house.
We moved into the house in 2000. We had no idea at the time, and whilst we were moving our boxes in and out, a chap who lived across the road, John, who'd lived here for about 50 years, he died last year. He came over and asked me if I was a United fan. I said yes. He said, well, do you know who used to live here? I said, no. And he said, Tom Curry.
He moved here in 1932 to be the trainer for Manchester United. So I've sort of, and he was killed in the Munich air disaster, which is 60 years in February, on the 6th of February. I've sort of grown up with sort of Manchester United in the blood.
About a year ago, we were sat around the table and we were talking about the fact that the 60th anniversary was this year. And one of my friends was talking about the blue plaques that are already in Trafford Borough, one for Duncan Edwards and one for Tommy Taylor. So we thought, oh, well, perhaps we should apply for one.
And you meet people who have known my granddad, and he was just, there was never a bad word to say about him, how a lovely man he was, how very supportive he was. They said he was, he was like a favourite uncle or a father figure to a lot of the young players.
But we gained the support of the Association of Former Manchester United Players, who all kind of signed off to it, and David Meek, who was the Manchester United reporter on the Evening News, they all supported it because they knew who Tom Curry was and recognised his contribution. So that was enough for the council to then say, OK, we support the application.
It's lovely to see so many people here.
Wow, what a turnout today. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, it's one of those things. As any true football fan, I think, is a bit of a romantic. You as a child, you imagine yourself playing for the football team that you support. So once I knew that Tom had lived in this house, I kind of thought that perhaps because of who he was a physio. So it wasn't a big logical leap to say that perhaps, Matt Busby, he only lived around the corner, so he may have been in the house, and perhaps one of the players might have got some treatment here, but without actually any real confirmation. Until we tracked down the family, Jenny, Tom's granddaughter, confirmed that her mum, who grew up in this house, regularly came home to find, just over here, that there'd be 4 or 5 of the Busby babes sat around the table having their tea.
My mum would come home from work and she would, said she would come in and she would never know if there was anybody coming for tea or not. 1 or 2 of them would come, maybe more, would come round for tea, and it's just, you can't really picture it really. It's sort of, you think, really?
The very idea that kind of, Duncan Edwards or Bobby Charlton just may have sat in there just having their tea, for a United fan, is quite a thing.
It's very humbling as well. We never expected this at all, to be able to, when we heard from Charlie and Alison, it was a belt out of the blue.
that the 60th anniversary of something is the time where people acknowledge that something is passing from living memory into history. I think it's kind of quite timely that people like Tom Curry and Bert Wally and Walter Crickmer and some of the journalists that were on the plane, and I think it's nice now that Tom gets to take his place, and that when somebody Googles his name because they've walked past the house and seen the plaque, there'll be quite a body of information for him that wasn't previously available.
I think I feel very proud. Yeah, very proud, and you see blue plaques when you go around, different cities, etc. And you never think that would have a significance to you and your family.
Well, imagine coming home and finding the Busby Babes having a cup of tea in your front room.
But next, a legendary player from the blue side of Manchester would also be among the victims at Munich.
Rebecca Longbottom has more.
10 years ago, the Manchester derby coincided with the 50th anniversary of the Munich disaster. Despite initial fears the minute silence would be disrupted, it was impeccably observed. City won the match, with several members of Frank Swift's family looking on. In the closing minutes, the City fans chanted, "There's only one Frank Swift," to applause from United fans. City goalkeeper Frank Swift was a giant in both reputation and stature, standing at 6'2" tall, with hands so big they were likened to frying pans. Born in Blackpool on Boxing Day in 1913, like most players of that era he had a trade, as a cokekeeper in the local gasworks. His talents were spotted playing for the gasworks side and for Fleetwood Town. He made his City debut in 1933 and a year later won the cup final. City came from behind to beat Portsmouth 2-1 in torrential conditions. He won his first England cap in 1939 and kept goal for the national side until 1949, retiring with 33 caps. During the war, he played for sides near where he was stationed: Aldershot, Liverpool, Reading, Fulham and Charlton Athletic, then resuming his career with City. Fans loved Frank, with many stories about him joking and bantering with the crowd, then making a superb save before coming back and asking what they thought of it. He retired at 35, though not for long. His successor, Alec Thurlow, fell ill and he came out of retirement to cover. There was even talk of his former City teammate, Matt Busby, tried to lure him to Manchester United. He didn't wear the gloves for the Reds, but instead covered them in Europe as a News of the World reporter, calling for away fans' travels to be subsidised. Sports historian Gary James considered Swift one of the most important footballing figures the game has ever been blessed with. He's one of the Football League's 100 legends. He's in the Manchester City and National Football Museum's Hall of Fame. Goal.com put him in their top 50 English footballers of all time. So the sickening chants about Munich are especially inappropriate, when one of those who died was a Blue and Wands Reds, an England keeper and a giant of the game. Frank Swift, a football legend.
A fantastic tribute to Frank Swift there.
Finally, although some players who survived Munich would never play again, one player who did survive went on to become United's record goal scorer.
Vince Hunt spoke to the daughter of Dennis Violet to find out more.
I'm Debbie Violet. I'm the daughter of Dennis Violet, a professional footballer who was in the Munich air disaster. My dad survived the air disaster, otherwise I wouldn't have known him because my mum was pregnant at the time. When I was a child, I can remember having to watch Match of the Day, whether I wanted to or not. And I remember my dad's mum, my Nana Violet, used to jump up and down in front of the TV, and I used to wonder what was going on, why she had to do that. When my dad used to come back from playing abroad, everyone used to run down the road when they knew that he was home. All my friends used to run down the road and he'd lift us into his arms up in the air and hug us. No, he would never talk about the air crash. They were all quite upset and you could tell, that they didn't want to talk about it. It's hurt them because they lost friends that were close to them. My mum was best friends with Duncan Edwards' fiancée, Molly, and she stayed close friends with Molly for all of her life. Molly died, unfortunately. I'm proud that my dad still has the highest goal scoring record for the league at Manchester United. Yeah, I think that my dad was underrated. I think that people don't realise what he did. He went on to teach football in America. He used to have soccer camps there, and you know, he was there for years and years teaching football. And I don't think that people in England realise how much he did. I think they should just remember that my dad was amongst the boys who started the club off. You know, they were the first ones to go to Europe, and they should look at what the people have achieved that survived the crash, as well as think about the people that didn't survive.
Hi, my name's Caden Dennis Lane Rugby, and my granddad is Dennis Violet, one of the Busby Babes from United, and he is, I think he still holds the top goal scorer for United. But I've never actually seen him in person, but I've seen him in pictures, and I've tried to like be like him, but I've not like done as well as him in like in football. Yeah, I tried. Yet. So yeah, I support United, and I watch some of their matches, like and I've been to about 3 of them, but I would like to go to more.
Can you remember what you used to call Manchester United when we drove past? What did you used to tell me it was?
Grandad's home. Grandad's house. Yeah, I used to call United Stadium when we went past it. I used to say that's my granddad's house, that.
That brings us to the end of our 60th anniversary special.
Whichever team you support in Manchester, let's all come together to celebrate one of the best teams to come from our city. Thanks for watching.